Everybody, welcome back to an episode of Frank's Unsolicited Advice. It's Memorial Day weekend. Yes, and I'm stuck in the house. And you're probably asking yourself, why are you stuck in the house, Frank? Well, because I caught COVID for the second time. Yes, I did. For the second time. So if you hear me congested, you hear me with the sniffles, you hear me maybe pausing to sneeze, you hear me breathing heavy, that's the reason why. It's because your boy done cut COVID again. So my second round of COVID, and here I am. So my weekend shot. I'm supposed to have duty tomorrow. Now I don't have it. Can't take my family nowhere. Top Gun came out and I can't go watch it. So I'm in the crib. What I've been doing while I'm in the crib this time, well, guess what? I've been helping my business partners grow their business. I've been doing it, business calls myself, trying to get things out there, manage my time better, I guess, maximize my time. If I can't be on the ship giving my sailors my time, I might as well be here giving clients my time. And it's safe because I'm on Zoom. So that's what I've been doing, which got me to thinking about, let's record. Got the house to myself. My wife and my daughter went out. My son's in his room. He's not coming out. And my oldest, I think, is in her room, or she went out too. So I don't know. But I was sitting here and I just got done with a business call. And I said, you know what, let me get on here and talk to my peoples that listen to me. So sometimes when we came to my mind, I was already talking for about 5 minutes before this, and I erased it because I wanted to get to this point. And it's something, what I want to talk about today is things happening when they're supposed to happen, not when you want them to happen. And what made me think about this is that everybody knows that listens to me, follows me on social media, or knows me that the end of the road with the Navy is coming up very soon. I will be out the Navy, retired. By the time I do retire, I'll be 26 years of service, and I'll be, focusing on my business full time and the podcast full time. So I will have more time to dedicate to this, and I would not be conflicted with what the Navy wants me to do, but I'll be able to do what I want to do. And so timing and things happen when they're supposed to happen. So here lately, I've seen an uptick in clients, recruits, business partners that I'm helping. We're coming up with new ideas with the podcast. We're getting more consistent with Frank Presents the Play Call so we can talk about football. I'm starting to get the juices flowing for this one, the unsolicited advice, because I always said I wanted to give you guys genuine me on the microphone, nothing less. And that's why I haven't put out an episode consistently, is because my mind is so wrapped up with other things that it's kind of hard to give you genuine information, genuine content, I should say. Yes. So I've noticed that here lately, as I get closer to hit a year mark in the Navy left, things are starting to come through. Things that weren't happening are happening. Things that I feel, hey, man, at points where I feel like I'm just going to give up, they're coming through and they're happening. And even me catching COVID now, I think it's a blessing. I told somebody, I think that's God's way of telling me you need to relax a little bit, because sometimes we get the ripping and running and I don't take time off for myself. So now God is saying, hey, I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to make you take time for yourself. So thank God it's not that bad, and I'm not hurting too bad. It does suck, and you can hear the congestion. My chest is a little tight, but it could be worse. I could be on a ventilator. I could be, in the hospital. So thank God I'm at home with my family and I'm not in one of those positions. But with that being said, going back to the topic, is things happen when they're supposed to happen, not when we want them to happen. And I think in life, that's what happens a lot of the times. We get so frustrated because we want things to happen when we want them to happen, not when they're supposed to or meant to happen. And there's a difference. Because let's look at it with relationships in a sense. You meet a young woman, or whatever you're into, and you want to get to know them, but you want it to hit up faster than when it's going because you want to rush, but it's taking its time. It's probably taking its time for a reason, because that's probably what's supposed to happen. And it works out better. But then you rush it and try to get on your own time and it doesn't work out. It's because you moved the process up faster than what it's supposed to be. Sometimes walking out the house and going into the store, you meet somebody, or the people that buy the lottery ticket, how many lottery tickets did they buy before they walked in the store and they bought this lottery ticket and they won? It's because it was supposed to happen, not because they wanted it to happen. It was not on their time for it to happen. It was when it was supposed to be, when God wrote it out, when whoever you believe in wrote it out, and they put in the universe, on this date, this is when this person's going to win the lotto. That's what happens. It's not when you want to do it. And it's not maybe not meant for you to win it either. You know what I'm saying? Like, my father plays the lotto since I can remember, and I'm 42 years old. And he's hit, but he's never hit big. You know what I'm saying? So is it that he's not meant to hit big, or wasn't his time? So going back to this business and what I'm doing, I feel like because it's now that I'm getting closer to the end, God is putting things in my place to help me get to where I need to be afterwards. He's securing me, my future, without me even knowing, by advancing me in certain levels, by giving me the motivation, putting me in front of the right people, letting things come my way when he wanted them to come, not when I wanted them to come. Because I wanted this 2 years ago. But, it didn't happen that way. So now, 2 years later, it's coming through. It's coming through. It's coming to where I can, if things fall in place and I do things right, I could be at a marketing director level. I can be at a higher level in this company. I could be setting myself up. So next year, when I transition into the real world, into the civilian world, and have to grow up, I already have my things in place where I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to be good. And it just takes me back to everything we do. Even in my Navy career, my promotion to chief didn't come when I wanted it to come. It came when I stopped caring about it coming. And I believe that's when it was supposed to happen. Some people make it so fast, and you're like, man, what did they do that I didn't do? I'm a better this than that. But you know what? That's because that was their calling, their purpose. That's why they made it that fast. Just like, my brother Tyson just made Master Chief. And before he transferred to his next command, we was talking last year, and he's like, man, if I don't make it next time, I'm just going to put my papers in, blah, 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 blah. And he made it. And now he's in California with his family, enjoying his time, and he reached the climax of his career. He reached the goal where he wanted to be, not when he wanted it, when it was supposed to happen. And I think that sometimes we have to be patient with what's going to take place. Not sometimes, but I know we have to be patient, because we're not always going to get what we want when we want it. But things are not always going to happen when we need them to happen. It's not always going to be a for sure thing just because you've been so for sure the previous times. I look at sports, and you could have a person like Steph Curry up there hitting all free throws, and then that one he needs to hit, he doesn't hit. Maybe it wasn't his time. Maybe that was his time to miss one, because it was somebody else's time to win. And that's how we got to look at it, right? Life is not based on only us. Life is based on everybody. And what's for us is going to be for us regardless. And it's going to happen when it's meant to happen, not when we want it to happen. Sometimes the two match. Sometimes the two match. Sometimes I want something to happen, and it happens when I want it to happen, because that's what it's supposed to be. Not because I wanted it to happen. That's just because it just so happened that what I wanted was supposed to happen at that point in time. Give you an example. 2 weeks ago, my dad wasn't doing too well. My cousin said, Frank, I need you to come down. Just 2 weeks prior, or 3 weeks, my mom had a heart attack. Me and my sister were looking at flights, and they were like $500 just to fly from Virginia to Florida. I couldn't do it. But then my dad needed me, and it was the same weekend that my sister and I were looking at flying down there anyways. I spent $250, $280 on a plane ticket. Why? Because it was meant for me to go there, but it wasn't meant for me to go before. And that's why the plane tickets, I feel that it match. I bought a ticket on Sunday for Monday for $280. That's crazy, with the way prices are now. Again, it just confirms that when things are supposed to happen, they're going to happen. And when they happen, and if it's meant for you to be there and take advantage of it, you will. Because that's how it's supposed to work. We're not always we're not always going to get things when we want them. And hell, we might not ever get some of the things we want. It just maybe not meant for us to have it. You know, it just might not be. Or it just might be that the victory we need is not the one that we want. It's probably another one, another chapter in life, another event in our life that is going to propel us to get what we want and what we want. It's like relationships, conversations, and friendships. Sometimes we want those relationships to take off when we meet people, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes, we don't see eye to eye until 5 years later. And then you meet up again at a new command or a new place, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? You get to talking, now you're vibing, everything's different. But it's probably because back when you first met, it wasn't meant for you guys to be as close as you are. Maybe now you're in the right headspace to do so. And that's what I believe. I'll give you another example of that. I was on the Roosevelt from 2006, 2008. I recorded a podcast with Nikki, and I didn't meet Nikki until I was in Pensacola when she was working my wife at a reserve center, but she was on the Roosevelt with me. And she worked in personnel. So I would go to personnel and I would never see her. But we in Pensacola together and I meet her. What's the odds? I can understand if she was an OS on the 03, never saw her. I can understand if she worked below decks like an MM or something and I didn't see her. But that wasn't the case. I was actually she worked in a situation in a place where I would go to consistently, and I never met her because it wasn't meant for me to meet her. So, and then let's take that relationship right there. We met in Pensacola, lost contact. When I started doing the podcast and recording football, she started chiming in, and now we record together. And now we're closer today than we were when we first met. When her and my wife first met, and she would come over with her sons. So again, that's just another example of that. When we want things to happen, they don't happen. It's when they're supposed to happen. When we least expect it, people come out and you create relationships or things happen, whether it's winning a game, whether it's hitting a lotto, whether it's meeting friends, whether it's your business taking off, whether it's an idea that didn't work 5 years ago, but 5 years later, that idea is what's needed and it happens and it takes off. That's what you need. That's just the point, the proof. The point is that at times you're not going to get what you want when you want it. You're going to get what you want when you need it. Make sense? You're going to get that. As they say, God's always on time. He's always on time because the on time is when it's his time. So for us, he might be late, but for him, it's like, I don't know what you're saying. This was my time the whole time. That you were talking about a few years ago, that wasn't my time. That was your time, which wasn't my time. So that's why it didn't happen. And that's what I wanted to get at. So that's the headspace I'm in right now. Is realizing that at times we're going to get what we want when we need it, not when we want it, which goes back to sometimes what we need isn't what we want, and what we want isn't what we need. And it goes back to timing and taking advantage and stepping out on faith and accepting the unforeseen, the unknown, and closing your eyes and sometimes saying, you know what, God, I'm going to step out this door and I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to say, hey, world, here I am, and see what happens. And sometimes what we think is as an idea, not sometimes, I talk about this as parents or grownups, what we do is we have an idea of what we want to do in life. But then what happens is we grow up and we got bills to pay. We have a mortgage, we have a car, and we have children, we have responsibilities. So we look at things, how we can make the money, we do it. So yeah, your degree could be this, English, whatever, but you find a job in something totally different. That's going to pay you the money you need for you to be able to take care of what you got to take care of. It's not what you want to do, but it's what you need to do to provide. Again, it's not what you want, it's what you need. It doesn't happen when you want it to happen. It happens when you're supposed to happen, when it's the right time. And we don't control that. We don't control that time. That's not for us to control. That's not our place to control it. All we can do is make sure that we're doing what we have to do. So when the time comes, we can get that. We can enjoy that. We can receive what's ours, or we can be there to make it happen. You're not always going to get that. You know, it's not always your time. And like I said earlier, sometimes it's not meant to be. You know, we was talking about sports and we was talking about how Ewing never won a ring with the Knicks and how, you know, Jordan was his Achilles heel and all this other stuff. And, you know, I look back and I always say, man, these guys stay with these teams and they went nowhere else because they were, you know, loyal to a team. But you never won a ring. But maybe it was never meant for them to win a ring. Maybe it just never was meant for that to happen. You know, some stuff happened on luck, but is it luck or is it that it happens because it's supposed to happen? And maybe that's another conversation, another episode for some other time. But that's the headspace I'm in. That's where I'm at. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And it's simple as things happen when they're supposed to happen, not when we want them to happen. You don't get the promotion when you want it. You get the promotion when you need it, when it's supposed to come. And if you never get it, it just maybe, that's the universe telling you, look, you got to move on. I was telling somebody that didn't get promoted, they were getting ready to higher tenure out. Higher tenure is when you reach the max years you could be in the military. For a certain rank, you have to retire, right? Or get out. If you have 20 years or more, you retire, you know, but if not, then you process out. And, you know, the person was a little bummed out. They didn't make it. They felt, man, I really wanted to. They were kind of hopeful, but they weren't trying to show it. And I said to him, I said, man, maybe this is God's way of telling you it's time to go. And the reason is because if you would have got promoted, now you were a pay grade higher, you're up for orders. There's no guarantee you're going to go back to shore duty. You might be going back to another ship. And then you losing time with your family that you don't want to lose. So this is God's way of saying, listen, bro, I know you. If I give this to you, you're not going to roll out. So how about I don't give it to you? Because I know you're going to be okay, because I know the future. You got to roll on and try something new. And I think we need to focus on that more and pay attention to that, because I feel that when we don't, we're questioning the plans of the greatest architect, and we're not seeing what's there. And that sometimes we don't need to question, which goes back to another episode of faith or stepping out on faith, or the fear of the unknown. We sometimes hold back because we don't have control what's next. Since we don't know, we can't control it. Yo, just let it go. Because if it's meant for you to get what you're supposed to get, and it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen, whether you are ready or not. It's going to happen. And then you're going to have to adjust. So the name of this episode is going to be simple. Things happen when they're supposed to happen, not when you want them to happen. COVID got me again in the house, and look, I came up with the content. So again, subscribe, like, share. And this was my episode on things happen when they're supposed to, not when you want them. Frank's Unsolicited Advice. Thank you for listening.